president of the Sheffield Golf Club. I never had the pleasure of playing with Neville. Thanks for all the weeks that come today. Thanks to all the family and friends that come. Never had the pleasure of playing with Neville. He was purely the barman when I come, but he was also the chief green feeder non-payer policeman out there as well. And although he didn't move real well, he certainly chased down as many as he could. And if you seen him going up the first a bit late, he'd catch him coming back down the third. So from that point of view, Neville done a hell of a good job for this club, and we do appreciate everything that he done. When I'm finished, Greg Collis, our captain, would like to say a few words, followed by Tim Irvine from the Sheffield Cricket Club sort of side of Neville's life. So we'll get straight on with Greg's after I read a bit of a tribute that John Hope wrote on behalf of Neville, because again, I only knew him as an older man behind the bar, but he done a brilliant job of that. Tribute to Neville Weeks. The Sheffield Golf Club is surviving without Neville Weeks. However, we should go back to the many years when Neville was the go-to person. Very few of our current members are aware of the contribution made to the club's success. Many only saw an ageing and physically worn person who tried to be of use, albeit with a lack of movement and the potential to fall on the job, and did not want to relinquish his role as clubhouse at the clubhouse, which had become his virtual home away from home. He used to come up and check the gates at night and all that sort of stuff, make sure that the rabbits and animals couldn't get into the club. He done a great job. Before golf, Neville was a member of the Sheffield Cricket Club, which we'll touch on. Neville was a competent golfer, having particular skill with iron play like all refugees from cricket. His first contribution came with his election as club captain. This position was held for 19 odd years. Players look forward to the end of the day announcements of the results, accompanied by a new joke and maybe controversial statements. Then he became long-standing licensee, looking after refreshment needs of the thirsty players, making sure that our need for hot pies were met. There were ample milk and coffee available, always there to open the club and to securely lock up clubhouse gates at the end of the day, sometimes returning again later to make sure all was secure. For a time, Neville also mowed the greens and would be seen raking, burning, especially the area between the 7th and 8th fairways. Neville became well versed in the interpretation of the R&A rules, and his decisions were accepted without debate. Life membership was awarded some years ago. However, I believe that further recognition should be made on behalf of the Sheffield Golf Club.
Good day, everybody. Just looking around, I see Des Irvine. Haven't seen you for a long time. Welcome back, good to see you here. And his partner in crime, Dookie, who is obviously still a member here and an active member here. Mark said that he didn't get the pleasure of playing with Neville. I played with Neville on his very last game. I'll never forget, because I think Dookie and Barry Chewson were in the same team. I'm not sure, I think that was the two that played, but I do remember Neville playing, and we were playing a pairs competition, and Neville chipped in for a birdie on the last hole. So his last shot in golf was a chip in, and I will never forget that, because as I said, I was there when it happened. John touched on things Neville did around the club. You can't express what he did. When I came here, I started in 92 or 3, I'm not 100% sure which. He was a life member when I started, so he'd obviously been at the club for a long time before that. But when I first started, you'd come up here and there'd be little spot fires going around the place. That was Neville. He'd just come up, he'd rake up a heap of rubbish off the course, tidy it up, just burn a little heap, stood up there, probably with a stubby, we didn't know from here. But And he did all that, and touch upon Pye's past, but it was a myriad of jobs that he did, and it was only once he finished that we realised just what he did do. He did that much more than anyone sort of realised. When I first came here, I thought that he, was, well, nearly the club, and I think that he was, in one way, the Sheffield Golf Club. Every waking minute that he wasn't, well, he was here. He was always here. Always caught people, if they tried to play without paying, he'd sit here all day and he'd catch them. If someone wanted a drink, he was here. Anything that needed doing. The gates hadn't been shut. He'd come back up after and make sure everything was locked up. There really wasn't a job he didn't do. I inherited the captaincy in about 2019. I was vice captain and the captain just suddenly stopped playing. And they all said to me, as vice captain, you have to take over. And I said, well, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to leave. I wanted to be vice captain for 3 or 4 years and learn what to do before I was captain. I spent quite a bit of time talking to Neville about, you said 19 odd years, I counted 20, I think, that he was captain up here. And I spoke a lot to him about captaincy, got some very good advice from him on just, how to do things. And he always said, even though he did it that way, you had to work out your own way of doing things. But I tried in so many ways to do exactly what he did. I forgot about the jokes. He told a joke every time he came up here with the results. He told a joke. I got away from that because that is not my... He was exceptionally good at that. And newer members sort of remember Neville, as John said, as he was at the end. I remembered Neville as a golfer when he was playing, and he had a wonderful sense of humour. He was exceedingly quick. Like, it didn't matter what you said to him, you couldn't catch him. He just had an answer for everything. He was just, well, just amazing. I just couldn't, just everything about him. I didn't know, but my boss at work went to play golf with him down at Stanley way back before, well, I reckon it had been back in the 80s. And my boss was a notorious snorer. And Neville and Rod ended up in the one room. Rodney woke up the next morning, no Neville. Where's Neville? Where's he? He'd gone out and slept in his car because he couldn't handle the snoring of this. Yes. All these stories about Neville, I can only relate a little bit about, he had a bit of a run-in with the police in Launceston. Something about, I can't say too much, but urinating in public, I think, was the actual problem. He'd walked out of the pub, had the need to go and did. Unfortunately for him, a policeman was driving past. I don't think a lot happened, but that was just Neville. What to say? I can't say much more about him, really. I mean, he was just, to me, the Sheffield Golf Club.
Thanks, Greg.
My name's Tim Irvine, and I'm a member of the Sheffield Cricket Club, and I'd just like to talk about Neville's involvement down there. Just firstly, Neville was a very good cricketer in his own right. He's a left-arm swing bowler and took many wickets playing for Sheffield and down at Stanley, down in the Northwest cricket competition. So many, in fact, that he was actually inducted as a Hall of Fame in the pool of the Hall of Fame members for Cricket Northwest. So he's been very well respected in the cricket competitions on the coast. But my involvement with Neville was back in the early 80s. We had a few kids around the town was interested in playing cricket. Our parents had started up a local junior cricket roster, and we played for 2 or 3 years, and we all got to about out of our under 14s, so 14, 15 years of age, and we had nowhere to play. Neville was just finishing his career with our first and second grade sides on turf at Sheffield, and he took it on himself to start as a third grade side at Sheffield, which was our inaugural Sheffield Colts team. So Neville would have been well into his 40s then, with a heap of kids about 14, 15, that no doubt we were brats, but we didn't win too many games through that period, but it gave us all an opportunity to play cricket in our local area, but it also he taught us the right way to play. He loved a rule, he loved the traditions of the game, but most of all he taught us how to respect the opposition, and it's those things that us young fellas back then that have taken back through the career club all over the years. He had the foresight with that Colts team, like in Sheffield having a third grade team, because if you're going to have strong and be competitive in your first and second grade teams for Sheffield to be up against the city clubs of Burnley, Devonport and Holsons and so forth, that you've got to have numbers playing. And it's been the blueprint for our club and why we punch above our weight down there at the moment, because we've always had that third grade side. Neville captained it for a few years in our local cricket comp here that was played, but then Cricket Northwest had a third grade side, third grade comp that we had a side in, and when that got disbanded, now we use Wilmot for that purpose. So we've always had someone or having a third grade side, but it started with Neville taking on and I guess showing the blueprint for that. And I was talking to John and Judy Hope, because I'm sure Stephen was in that inaugural side too back in the early 80s as well. Aside from that, Neville, very good administrator. He took on the secretary role for many years down at Sheffield at the Career Club, and we didn't have an abundance of people who would come in and do those roles. So Neville he did it for many years, but he taught us young fellas who we had to play and do the administration stuff as well. It's just where we was at. But he was always, when he finished up doing those roles and he wanted to be more involved up here in the golf club, we could still use Neville as a mentor, even right up to, whenever I used to see him and still have a chat, and he'd always give a bit of advice about what we could do, or if there was an issue we could raise it with him, and he'd always have a very, very good voiced opinion on how we should do things. As Greg said, just a very good man. Because of all that work that he did down at the Career Club, he's been made a life member of that. And I don't think, I've said it before, I don't think there's anyone that's, apart from Neville, is the only one who's a life member of the Career Club as well as the golf club. So it's a tremendous effort for a man in our local community of what he's done, not only for the individual clubs, but just the community as a whole. From a personal point of view, I can always remember Neville, I used to work in the bank, he just take the button at the changeover when David Roots had the hotel, and Neville would be always there over lunchtime, just having his counter meal, his square meal for the day. He'd be doing the crossword and he'd get that done, or he'd be checking his Tats Lotto numbers or looking at the numbers for the upcoming Tats Lotto on the weekend. He loved to punt on the Tats, but just a very good man. And I could certainly say, like, we've got our season obviously starting here in October, but right through all grades, that first game that we play, we'll be wearing black armbands in respect and a fond memory of what Neville did for our club and who he was as a person. So thanks very much. Continue to swap stories about him. He's a very good man.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to say something for Neville?
Love to. It's taken me a week.
Greg touched on all the little things that Neville used to do around here, and it's been brought to my attention this morning that both the clocks have stopped this week, and that's just another job that obviously Neville done. So thanks guys, there's plenty of tuck up the back, enjoy yourselves and have a good day.